Good morning, Max! Oh, yes. Good morning, sweeties. You don't seem like your usual sparkling self today. I'm always like this before I go on in front of an audience. I'm working up to it.
Don't get nervous, Maxie. Here, have a glass of milk.
Regina! Oh, how fabulous! My sweetie pie princess! You came to watch my performance today?
Of course I did! Mo told me that I should come and watch this.
Mo said that?
So, what kind of performance will you put on today? Let me guess, you'll fly at the end?
It's not that kind of show. Isn't that right, my sweeties? I think my sweetie pie princess doesn't... Yeah, she doesn't seem to realize what's going on. Or even where she is.
Well, Max, it looks like it's time to raise the curtain. I'll see you later. Today, I'm just a member of the audience.
Fabulous! Enjoy yourself out there.
Good luck, Max. You're the best.
Regina's different, don't you think, Nick? On top of the
morning to ya! Everybody, let's get ready to get stuck in legal limbo. How low can you go?
Oh.
Top of the morning to ya, governor.
Top of the morning?
That's the ticket. Attacking the day with energy in the morning. Early bird gets the worm. But then again, worms lack higher brain function. Here, Max, I brought you a present. Have some milk.
Oh my! Thank you. Everyone's bringing this guy milk.
So how are you today, Wright?
Well, I got a feeling that today I'm going to face off against the real criminal.
You mean Acro?
Huh? You think he did it?
Be careful. He's used to putting his life on the line. Literally. He's got guts to spare.
If all I've got to worry about is how thin the tightrope is, well, I'm used to it already. It just means that I won't be able to press him like I can other witnesses. What are you going to do then, Nick? I guess today we'll just have to do without our usual psychological warfare. Today we rely on evidence. It's the only way we'll get past Acro into the truth. You're right, but it's going to be tough. Anyways,
I want you to make sure that Regina sees it all today. It's very important. Then she'll finally have to deal with the reality of what happened to her father.
you want us to make sure Regina watches?
Yep. That's why I brought her to court today.
What's that supposed to mean?
She needs to know that when people die, they don't just become stars. I may be an old-fashioned clown, but I don't believe in people becoming stars.
All right. The juicy part. The courtroom.
The court is now in session in the trial of Maximilian Galactica.
The prosecution is ready, Your Honor.
The defense is ready as well, Your Honor.
Very well. Miss Von Karma, you may proceed with your case.
The prosecution would like to revise its previous theory of event.
What's the meaning of this?
We have discovered new witness, or shall I say new eyewitness. One that saw Maximilian Galactica fly off from scene of crime.
Order! Order in my courtroom! I had a feeling something like this would come up.
Due to this revision, we are now prepared to explain how the defendant flew that night. Explanation the prosecution will present if the need so arise. In fact, my detectives stay up all night creating mock-up of scene on my order.
Or gumshoe.
Very well. Please call your witness to the stand.
It's time to get to work. Shall I say, time to walk the courtroom tightrope. Ayo!
Name. Occupation.
Ken Dingling, but everyone calls me Acro. I'm employed as an acrobat at the Very Big Circus.
Where were you night of crime?
I was in my room that night. If you look at the map, you'll see the witness's room is... Oh,
If you look at map, you'll see witness room is near crime scene.
my room is on the 3rd floor. The crime scene is below my window.
Night of crime, the witness saw something quite shocking. Would you tell us a little bit about what you witnessed?
Okay. What you witnessed. It was just after 10 p.m. I was resting in my bed. Around that time, I heard a large thump noise from outside the window. Then, a few moments later, I saw someone flying right by my window. It was Max Galactica. I only saw him from behind, but that's who it looked like. From behind, eh? To be honest, when I saw that, I thought I was dreaming.
This witness's testimony matches exactly with that of the clown.
If that is the case, there is very little the prosecution need add. All that is left is to explain how defendant disappeared into sky that night.
Hold it! Before we get that far, I'd like to cross-examine the witness.
A foolish choice by foolish fool, who wish to feel the foolish sadness of a sad fool. The man must know the proper timing for things, Mr. Phoenix Wright. Just like your old friend, Mr. Miles Edgeworth.
Ugh.
Mr. Wright, do you have a problem with the witness's testimony?
In the words of Miss Von Karma, may I quote yesterday's proceedings? There's no way that actually happened.
Very well. You may proceed with your cross-examination.
What you witnessed. All right. It was just after 10 p.m. and I was resting in my bed. You said that you were resting in bed. One would thus assume that you turned the lights off in your room, correct? That's correct. But there are safety lights around the outside of the lodging house. It's so bright sometimes it can make it hard to sleep.
If that's the case, wouldn't it be a good idea to close the curtains?
You know, I never really thought of that. Guess that means I'm off to buy some curtains.
Sometimes I do make myself useful in these chambers. Ow!
The witness will proceed with testimony.
Around that time, I heard a large thump from outside the window. Your room is on the 3rd floor, right? Yup. And you said that you were resting in bed? That is correct. But you were still able to hear a sound from outside? I was indeed. Pressing acro doesn't seem to get results. Maybe something was contradictory with what he just said. I don't think I have anything contradictory with what he just said. Oh wait, no, he said 10 p.m., but... Yeah, no, he said it was just after... 10:15 is the time of death. So... I'm gonna come back to this, possibly.
What's the matter, Mr. Wright?
Nothing, Your Honor. Till I can find a clear contradiction, I should tread lightly. Then a few moments later, I saw someone flying right by my window. What did you say before? Around that time, so just after 10, and I was resting in my bed. Around that time, I heard a large thump noise from outside the window. I'm going to continue pressing on some stuff, but see if we can find anything else. Are you sure it was a human being? It could have been a mannequin, or perhaps a large action figure. Well, setting aside the possibility of a mannequin, an action figure is plausible.
You have no need to mince words with Mr. Phoenix Wright. Testify to truth and only to truth, just as if we were there with you that night.
I believe it was a human. Damn, I just strengthened his testimony. I wonder if Acro's statement jives with the facts. I don't think there's anything wrong yet.
What's the matter, Mr. Wright?
Nothing, Your Honor. Till I can find a clear contradiction, I should tread lightly. saw Max Galactica, but only from behind. Where things get a little tricky. The hat was on the ground of the crime scene, which implies that he might not have flown away with the hat, but it could also have fallen off of him after he already flew past the window, if, you know, we're sticking by this whole flying past the window story. That's my main thing. You know what I mean? But I don't know, it's kind of tricky with how they're putting us on here, man. It's kind of tricky. All right. The light in your room was turned off then, right? That's true. I was going to bed after all. So, with the lights off, you were still able to clearly see a human fly by your window. The safety lights lit things up enough for me to see, but honestly, there was only enough light for me to see the silhouette outside my window. It was the person's back, so I couldn't see the white roses on front.
Did you see any of the other symbols?
I clearly saw the silk hat as well as the cloak wrapped around his body. I'm convinced that the person I saw was Max Galactica. The more I press him, the less results I seem to get, but maybe there was something fishy with this latest bit of testimony. The hat does really... Found at the crime scene. Made to order fedora that is a symbol of Max's fabulousness. Found at the crime scene. This definitely seems like the strongest one. I think we should try it. I'm going for it. There is a huge contradiction with the testimony that was just given.
If they're a contradiction, then prove with evidence.
She is right. Let's see some evidence, right? Do you have any evidence to support this claim?
Take that! You claim to have seen the exact same thing Mo saw that night. Do you stand by that? What do you mean? The silk hat. What about the silk hat? I saw it on Max's head as he flew by my window. Whoa! Alt 90s with the dono! Coming on in right there.
All this voice acting should be rewarded somehow. You deserve more.
The smile on your guys' faces is more than enough. Alt 90s, thank you for the $10 DZ. That's real cool, you dude. Appreciate it, man. A little bit of love in the chat. A little bit of moist L. OVE. Right. Well, you should have tried looking down out of your window that night. That would have been quite difficult considering the state I'm in. Just looking outside the window was a tough enough challenge for me. That's a shame, because you would have noticed the silk hat found at the scene of the crime. That's the ringmaster's hat, right? Nope. Afraid not. No matter how you look at it, this is Max's silk hat.
Where are you going with this, Mr. Wright? Are you saying that Max has 2 silk hats?
No, idiot. This is a handmade, one-of-a-kind model made only for Maximilian Galactica. Which means, Acro, that you've been fibbing on the stand.
Order! Order!
Like always, someone has to open mouth before thinking.
Are you okay, Nick? Well, I opened my big mouth and now I have to back it up.
How about it, Mr. Wright? What would cause the witness to commit perjury in this court today?
He has a grudge against Max. Acro was dreaming. Acro is the real culprit. It's not grudge against Max. He doesn't have a grudge against Max. We know that. I don't think dreaming is a viable enough thing. So I guess it's kind of just forcing us to go full Nelson on it. Which I didn't want to do, but I guess I will. Your Honor, on this occasion, the defense accuses Acro himself.
On this occasion?
Accuses Acro? What in the world are you accusing him of?
Obviously, we accuse him of the murder of Mr. Russell Berry.
Mr. Wright, are you serious?
Deadly serious, Your Honor.
Aha! 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 I think your trips out to the circus have served you well. You seem to remember how to grab audience heart and mind. Your Honor, do not allow yourself to be swayed by theatrics. Trying to wow crowd with smoke and mirror is oldest bluff in the book.
Really?
If you don't believe me, just look at the witness. He is calm enough for it to be almost scary.
Isn't that kind of the point? He is staying rather calm and collected.
Mr. Dingling, do you have any response to the defense's accusation?
I don't really need to say a thing. Do I?
What do you mean?
Everyone, take a good look at me. I can't even stand up by myself, let alone leave the lodging house.
That is true.
I understand that Mr. Wright is just trying to help his client, but to do this by accusing me of murder of all things.
See? Even sliver of common sense make it clear the accusation is ludicrous.
She's right! We're gonna pick on the disabled, you heartless, cruel man. Phoenix is a poopy head!
Oh, see that, Mr. Phoenix Wright? You tried to drum up support from Peanut Gallery. That's how you do it. I think that's enough of this kind of game. I've got a doctor's note to confirm Acro is unable to stand under his own power. Maybe defense is planning on making claim to counter this as well? I can hear defense now. Acro had accomplice.
What do you say about this?
What do you say about this, Mr. Wright? Did Acro have an accomplice?
I have absolutely no proof. If I say yes, I have absolutely no proof.
Now then, this must be where we get to hear the name of mystery accomplice.
Not this time, Von Karma.
Nani?
You're not going to sucker me into this one.
What are you blabbering about, Mr. Wright?
There was no accomplice. Acro planned and committed this murder all by himself.
Order! Order! What are you getting at?
Way to keep them on their toes, Nick. Now I'm gonna have to prove how it all fits together, though. I have to show how Acro murdered Russell Berry. Can you do it, Nick? Can you really do that? I know what I can't do. I can't stop now. If I stop attacking, I'm doomed. Alright, then let's do it.
Mr. Phoenix Wright, if this witness is the killer, then the eyewitness account is all lies, right?
Mr. Wright, I'd like you to clear something up for me. When the crime was committed, exactly where was Mr. Dingling?
Alright, hear me out here, guys. I think, with the road we're on, I think the only thing that makes sense is saying Acro's apartment. And here's why. He's on the 3rd floor, right? Everyone testifies to hearing this loud thump. What if the loud thump wasn't him being hit by a blunt object, but the loud thump instead was him falling out of the building? That way, we have evidence of someone flying. As weird as that might seem, as unlikely as that might seem. Number 2, it explains the fact that there is no murderer footprints if he fell out of the building, if he was knocked out of the building. I think, number 3, Acro can't leave his room, so if I'm gonna go on this, this is really the only place it could be. So yeah, I'm gonna present it. He was obviously here the entire time.
But that's Acro's room.
Pretty simple, huh? Acro wasn't able to leave the lodging house by himself. There was only one answer to that. Acro didn't leave his room to kill the ringmaster.
What? Are you nuts? Hiccups, man.
What say you, Mr. Dingling?
An interesting theory. That's it? Considering that what you propose is impossible, then yes, that's it. Oh.
Mr. Wright,
Yes, Your Honor.
as the witness has stated, your assertion is impossible. As he is in a wheelchair, there is no way he could go to the scene or be the killer.
You've got a point.
It seems you've forgotten once again, Mr. Phoenix Wright. Defendant was clearly spotted at scene of crime.
That is true. Mo said that he saw Max, didn't he? But Maya, it's still impossible for humans to fly. Do you mind if I ask a question, Mr. Wright? What is it? I understand some of your logic, but however, how do you think that I killed him? If I can't leave my room, I obviously couldn't wear Max's costume. How did he do it? That's the next course of this legal buffet. Be careful, Nick. If you mess up here... She's right. I can't mess up here. I gotta give this one some serious thought. I'm sure that Acro killed the ringmaster. But with what? And he killed the ringmaster while he was in his room. No doubt about it.
It's time to enlighten us on to how Mr. Dingling committed the murder, Mr. Wright.
Thanks for subbing. Thank you. Yay. You're the
Thank you for that resub to Suckswater 7 months in a row.
Father to a baby Suckswater.
The most
I'm
expensive
glad to throw more of
joke
this money stuff at you while you're
I've
being a
ever
lawyer
seen.
boy.
Appreciate it though, man. I do. All right. I don't think we have evidence of anything. The bottle was from the morning, so it can't be that. The hat's not a thing. Neither of these could be it. The wooden box, maybe, but the only real thing it could be is this bust, I think. And it was taken from the cafeteria, so we don't know where it was/is. Oh, wait a second! Wait a second! Look at how shiny it is, right? Right? And look at little monkey boy over here. Habitually gathers all sorts of shiny objects. And it was missing. That's a clear reason for the bust to have been in his room, actually. This is a real thin line, but you know what? Let's play dangerous, man. Let's do it. I'm gonna present some evidence.
So what did Mr. Dingling use to commit the crime against Russell Berry?
I'm gonna say the bust. I'm gonna say the bust, dude.
What's that? A picture?
It is indeed. The problem is what's in the picture.
The bust?
It's quite a large bust, and because of its life size, it's also very, very heavy.
Heavy.
Heavy enough to guarantee certain death, especially if it was dropped from a third-story window. Oh! Oh! That makes so much sense now! Oh! New running theory, guys! New running theory! Crime scene photo. Where's the crime scene photo? Okay, so the reason there's no footprints is because there was no mannequin, dummy, whatever. It was the bust with a cloak around it, and it already has a hat. It's a bust. That's why the hat was left at the scene of the crime, but he testified to seeing the hat when it was rising. He wasn't lying about that. Oh my god, we've cracked the case. We've cracked the whole entire case with this. It all makes sense now. See, this is how Acro was able to kill the Ringmaster, with the force of gravity and Maximilian Galactica's ample bust.
Order! Order! So you're saying the bust fell onto the ringmaster?
A rather simple crime. Even if you were struck in a wheelchair, it would be incredibly easy to commit.
How could you possibly wheel a wheelchair with something so heavy? It's impossible!
Well, Acro is an acrobat. He should have more than enough upper body strength to carry something like that bust.
Mr. Dingling, how do you respond to these charges?
Well, Acro's at a loss for words. He should be. He knows that I'm getting close to the truth. Well, Acro, you can't run away from things this time. Ow!
I'd watch what I say if I were you, Mr. Phoenix Wright.
What?
Your Honor, the physical health of witness is material to this case. I demand we get proper testimony from witness himself.
Testimony, you say?
Von Karma, you're stalling. You're using this testimony to stall. There's absolutely no need for such testimony.
The defense has its version of the murder. The prosecution has right to respond.
The defense's objection is overruled.
Why can't he see things my way once in a while?
Mr. Dingling, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna need you to testify about your physical condition. If you have any doubts about your ability, we can request expert testimony.
The witness will have no problems. However, let's all be respectful towards him.
Ugh, that woman will sink to any low with this case. Acro's physical state. I suppose I have lifted something the size of that bust. I have a strong upper body from working as an acrobat, and only my legs were injured. However, lifting the bust and looking out the window would be, well, impossible. There's no way I could have exerted that kind of force in my lower body, and that makes it impossible for me to have known the location of the ringmaster's head. Thus, it would be unrealistic for me to drop the bust on him, don't you think?
I have no doubts in regard to this witness's testimony.
It was impossible for him to lift the bust and carry over the window. Not to mention, he could not have known location of Ringmaster's head. A single false step would have led to even more severe injury.
That's what I was thinking. What is your opinion on the matter, Mr. Wright?
I'd still like to proceed with my cross-examination.
He is simply stalling. It's shameful, really.
Can't let her get to me. I've got to focus. Arrow's physical state. Sorry, Acro. I suppose I could have lifted something the size of that bust. I have a strong upper body from working as an acrobat. Let's get more info on that. So what have you been doing to keep in shape? Well, honestly, I've given up on training. I don't have any plans to return to the trapeze or the tightrope. You don't say. But no offense, I'm not worried about losing to you in a race or anything.
And neither am I, Mr. Phoenix Wright.
I wouldn't lose either, Slowpoke. Nick. I hate when they get, just weirdly off track like this. I suppose you could say that I'm stronger than the average bear. However, lifting the bust and looking out the window would have been impossible. Why? Because if I were to do that, I'd end up falling out of the window myself. I'd still haven't gotten much feeling back in my legs yet.
So you couldn't have thrown that bust out the window.
Fair. There's no way I could have exerted that kind of force on my lower body. How long do you think your recovery will take? You have to remember that nerves were severed. Currently undergoing some extremely intensive rehabilitation, but it's still going to take a while before I'm back to 100%.
Let me remind you of another important point. If witness was carrying bust, he would not be able to see out below window.
That makes it impossible for me to know the location of the ringmaster's head. Why do you say it would be impossible? Allow me to explain. You accept that if I was carrying the bust, I couldn't see out below the window? Thus, there's no way I would know the location of the ringmaster's head. Well, I suppose you've got a point. Hey, Nick? Huh. What if you turned things around? Maybe if you think of it sort of like this. If he knew the location of the ringmaster's head, then he could drop the bust. That does make sense. If only I could prove somehow that Acro knew the location of the ringmaster's head without looking down. I think I've already explained things sufficiently. Thus, it would be unrealistic for me to drop the bust on him. Don't you think? If all you had to do was drop it, then you wouldn't have been a problem at all. If all I had to do was drop it, you're right, I could have done that. However, there is no way I could score a direct hit on Ringmaster's head.
So that kind of makes your theory a bit pointless, doesn't it, Mr. Wright?
Acro is strong enough to lift up the bust. The main problem is how he could have aimed for the Ringmaster's head. I wonder if he used some kind of tool to aim for the Ringmaster. That's the ticket, Nick. Show them what you got. Gotta be careful, though. I gotta find something that fits perfectly with this case. I don't remember us finding any sorts of tool, but maybe we overlooked something. Yeah, no, guessing... A little bit of guessing in chat's fine, guys. Don't stress too hard about it. I really don't mind too much. As long as you guys aren't, like, backseating super hard. Figuring it out together, I think, is all the fun. So that makes it impossible for me to have known the location of the Ringmaster's head. I think we are on the right track, because if you take a look at the crime scene photo, he's hunched over the chest, right? And I believe when we found the chest, it was still locked. It was locked by a small key, yeah. So the chest was still locked. And if the chest was locked, that could have been the bait. That makes the most sense at this point, I think. So let's try it. Acro. You didn't really need to lean out of the window, did you? What are you driving at, Mr. Wright? You already knew ahead of time where the Ringmaster's head was going to be. Quite precisely, I may add.
You silly hinting at things is pointless. Mr. Phoenix Wright, enough stalling. How about you show us some evidence?
But that's what I'm doing.
Yes. Hurry up and explain things, Mr. Wright.
Maybe you should take a look at this. The key point is here, the wooden box.
The same wooden box that the victim was found hunched over?
The very same. The question is, who placed the wooden box here?
Who?
When Ben and company saw the Ringmaster, they didn't see him holding the box, which means that this wooden box was already in place at the scene of the crime.
I have to admit that your theory makes a lot of sense.
The moment that the bust came falling down was exactly the same moment that the Ringmaster lifted up this wooden box. Which means that the answer to all these questions is now crystal clear.
You mean...
If the bust were to fall upon the point marked out by the wooden box,
there would be no way that it could miss the head of the victim.
Really? Oh gosh.
Order in my courtroom. This is unbelievable.
Ooh, finally. Some of these loose ends are starting to tie up. Now I just gotta keep going, and there's only one way to go from here. Forward.
So the next question I have is, who placed the wooden box at the scene?
Why, it was Mr. Dingling, of course. He connected it to a rope, and he had it lowered down into position.
Allow me to whip some sense into you, Mr. Phoenix Wright.
Chill, lady.
Ringmaster's head could have been anywhere when he lifted box.
That's why the box was so specially made.
Specially made?
Indeed. It had the most peculiar feature. The victim was hunched over this 20-pound box. 20 pound. That seems to be pretty key here. The weight of the box, I think. The box has a remarkable weight.
Wait.
According to the court record, it weighs 20 pounds.
Just to lift up this wooden box would have required...
Oh, I see. No one would have to squat down and then lift it up with their body, wouldn't they?
That's exactly what I'm trying to point out. The box is also very large.
The box also has carrying handles on either side, doesn't it?
That is correct! To lift up the box, you'd have to squat down. Which means that no matter who you are, your head would be in approximately the same place. Fool! Does she even bother to listen to me anymore? I've heard what you've had to say. I must admit, I'm shocked at your imaginative skills.
Did you drop it? Did you drop the bust on the ringmaster?
What are you talking about? Even if I had wanted to do such a thing, I couldn't. What? Mr. Wright, do you recall the original location of this bust? Yeah. Of course I remember. It was on top of the table in the cafeteria.
Then what happened to it?
I'd like you to remember one important fact, Mr. Wright. I could not possibly leave the lodging house by myself. That means... You understand what I mean, don't you? I may very well have been able to drop the bust from my room, however, how would I have gotten the bust from the cafeteria to my room? Oh, it's the monkey, dude. The monkey, it's a shiny, shiny bust.
You say, Mr. Phoenix Wright, explain that! Do not forget, you said there was no accomplice.
Ugh.
Tell us exactly how witness would have carried bust from cafeteria.
Yeah, we definitely have a problem here. But this is no place to get perplexed. I gotta get my wits about me and prove how all this happened for once and for all.
All right, Mr. Wright. Let's hear your explanation. How did the witness get the bust from the cafeteria back to his room?
I present Money the monkey!
A monkey, you say?
Everyone knows Money. He loves shiny objects of any size.
For instance, he stole the ventriloquist's ring.
Sir? Are you saying witness had the monkey steal the bust?
Of course he didn't order the monkey to steal it. The monkey stole it on his own and then brought it back home.
Home?
Money lives in Acro's room.
Acro's room?
But the bust was bronze, wasn't it? Bronze isn't all that shiny.
Maybe you should put the whip down sometime and read the court record. My.
Those are some very nice cards he's holding.
Yes, and they are made of platinum, which is very shiny. Acro. Money is a strong monkey, right? It'd be easy for him to bring back that bust to your room. Well, if he wasn't able to handle that himself, I'd be on the market for a new roommate.
Order! Order! I said order! Miss Von Karma, where is the bust in question at this moment?
I do not know. We are searching for it as we speak.
Strange turn of events. If that monkey did not steal the bust, then what happens to this case?
Well, in that event, something else must have been used as the murder weapon. Well, or maybe this bust was the murder, but it was used by accident? That's possible. Maybe Acro saw Money's mountain of stolen goods and thought to use one of them. Anyways, I think we've more than proven one critical fact. Namely, that it was entirely possible that Acro was the murderer.
Moron!
Mr. Wright's arguments was so circular, I'm still a bit dizzy. However, his argument does hold water. There's no denying that.
Don't seem so flamboyant, especially by this fraud of attorney.
Fraud?
You forgot an absolute most important thing, Mr. Phoenix Wright.
And what is that?
Or you should know. You forgot that your friend of magical client was spotted at scene of crime.
Oh,
There is no reason to doubt clown testimony.
That is true. How do you respond to that, Mr. Wright?
Nick, don't let her beat you down. I won't. This is my chance to turn the trial around.
When the murder occurred, 2 people were at scene of crime. One was victim, Russell Barry, and other was murderer himself. Enter this and only this, Mr. Phoenix Wright. The clown saw the murderer. Who was it then?
Oh, I know this. This is easy. Yeah, it's the bust. He saw Max's Ow!
I ask you who the other person most saw with the scene. This evidence has nothing to do with question.
Au contraire, mon frère. It does indeed have something to do with the question. Mo said that he saw Max's silhouette. But he did not actually see the man himself. It wasn't a human being he saw.
How is that possible?
It's simple, really. What Mo actually saw that night was Max's bust.
What are you talking about? Have you tried using your brain at all in this case? The silhouette he saw was just happened to be wearing a cloak.
There's no reason why you couldn't attach a cloak to the bust. Or, a cloak like that could easily get snagged on the bust if it came into contact.
Idiot! Who in their right mind would put a cloak on bust?
It doesn't matter who put it on!
Just wait a minute now, Mr. Wright. Who put the cloak on this bust? That's the question of utmost importance in this case. Don't you agree?
Duh. He caught me.
So let's have at it. Who put the cloak on the bust?
The only thing that makes sense is that it was Russell. And here's my thinking about that. Ben has eyewitness account. Ben and Trillo have eyewitness account of seeing Russell walking to the scene with the cloak. I believe with the cloak and the hat, maybe? Yeah, and the hat. Yes, the cloak and the hat guaranteed, right? And, if he dropped it on his head and it got snagged on the bust as he pulled it back up, then it would have the cloak on it and still continues to justify the absolutely no footprints for a culprit theory. I'm going to present Russell Barry for the profile.
Fool! Him?
You're saying it was the victim himself, Russell Barry?
That's what I'm saying.
Victim himself placed cloak on the bust?
Placed the cloak isn't really the right way of putting it.
Then what would be the right way, Mr. Wright?
Explain yourself.
Nick, do you really have a handle on all of this? I'm fine, Maya. I'm finally putting all the pieces together. There's really only one picture I can paint anyways. Alright, so you want to know what really happened that night. Let's step back in time. Acro used the rope to lower the wooden box onto the scene. Then he attached the rope to the bust, and he dangled the bust out of his bedroom window directly above the wooden box. At the same time, the ringmaster told Max to wait in his room and went to the scene. Of course, at the time, the ringmaster was wearing Max's costume. Perhaps he didn't want anyone to recognize him that night. But just as he feared, he was spotted at the entrance of the lodging house by none other than the ventriloquist and his puppet, Ben and Trillo. When the ringmaster arrived at the scene, he bent over to lift up the wooden box. And that's when Acro took his chance and released the ropes. Now this is where the magic happens. At the very instant that the bust hit the victim,
You wait just a second there, Mr. Phoenix Wright. As much as you try, as much as you scheme, this just isn't true. It cannot be.
It's still a little early to be getting so upset, Miss Von Karma. The circus isn't over just yet.
Eh?
With the shock of the impact, it threw the cloak up and it got snagged onto the bust. That's when the sound was heard by the witness and he took a look out of his window. That witness was, of course, Lawrence Moe Curls, the clown. When Moe looked out of his window, the cloak had already snagged onto the bust. Now, having completed the crime, Acro naturally went about pulling up the murder weapon. Of course he had no idea that Moe saw the bust being raised with the cloak dangling on it, primarily because in his wheelchair he couldn't see out of his window. So he just kept pulling the bust up. And blingo blango. And that is how the magical murderer disappeared into the sky. It's so stupid that it makes sense. Now you know how the murder actually took place. And now you know who was able to drop the murder weapon from above the scene. Acro, it could have only been you. Acro's been playing mind games with all of us. He sure has. But he has come to the end of his rope now.
So?
What? What now?
You've graced us with a rather long-winded tale. But do you have any evidence to prove that this fairy tale is true?
Evidence?
In this court, only two things matter. Power of evidence and power of my whip.
Don't forget the power of my gavel as well. Mr. Wright, the prosecution brings up a good point. Can we see some evidence?
Nick, they say they want evidence. I just explained how there could only be one possible murder method, but there is still something unusual about Moe's eyewitness account. Usual. A contradiction, actually. Okay then. Use that and get out of this jam.
That's enough talking amongst yourselves. Proceed, Mr. Wright. Present some evidence to the court that backs your claims. I want hard proof that you have unraveled this trick to the magic case.
I don't know. I'm a little lost here. What's my evidence? What's my evidence? It's not the bottle. It's not gonna be the ringmaster's papers, I think. That, I don't think, is any motivation for him to be the killer. Money the Monkey, no. Leon. Hard proof. No, okay, so Leon's the motive, but I don't think it has to do with Moe's testimony, a contradiction in Moe's testimony. I can't remember it that well, though it was yesterday. What did Moe say? Can I look at Moe's profile and get something? No. I don't know. Chat, what's your ideas? See, the biggest contradiction I can think of has to do with the hat. The hat fell off and landed on the ground, right? But wait, hold on. Yeah. Okay, hold on. The hat fell off and landed on the ground, right? We have hard proof of that right here, found on the crime scene. But in Mr. Clown's testimony yesterday, he testifies to seeing it have the hat as it rises up. I think the hat here is the trick. Because how could there be a hat on the ground in the crime scene if the thing that rose up was wearing a hat? The answer is that the bust has a hat built in, and thus it makes sense for him to only see the cloak and the hat, and it was facing the other way potentially, so that explains why the clown didn't testify to seeing the white roses, because if it was facing frontwards, he would have seen the bust's face, but I guess it was dark, so... No, it was facing the other way, because he would have seen that there was no body in it. Alright. Present the hat, let's go. The problem is Max's 3 symbols. You know, the silk hat, the cloak, and the white roses.
Those symbols were a problem numerous times yesterday during proceedings.
Yesterday, there were 2 contradictions in Mo's testimony.
The silk hat was one and the white roses were other.
But the theory I just presented explains all these contradictions.
You fool! Do you ever shut up?
Max's silk hat was found at the scene of the crime. However, remember what Mo said yesterday. He testified that the criminal he saw fleeing was wearing a silk hat. There's only one explanation for that. The silk hat that Mo saw was actually the bust. So smart.
Makes sense. If you look at it that way, then he did see the silk hat. Sort of.
Fine, you got to win, but what about other contradiction?
The other contradiction?
Remember what that ventriloquist say in court? He said they saw a witness with white roses on Max's chest that night. But the clown testimony doesn't match. The clown said there were no white roses. I'd like to see you try and explain this one.
Can you do it, Nick? I sure can. I'll explain all of it.
What was that?
Please recall the instant when the cloak snagged onto the bust. If the cloak snagged onto the bust, what happens to the white roses? Sure. Do you get it yet? The cloak got snagged in front of the bust. It means that the white roses would have ended up on the back of the bust. Which explains why Mo didn't see it. The white roses were invisible because they were on the back side of the bust.
Order. Order. Order in my court. This is quite the shocking state of affairs. Mr. Wright's theory still sounds a bit absurd to me, but however, let's just keep going down this road for a while and see where it leads.
Let's do this, Nick. Then maybe Von Karma will finally throw in the towel. They seem pretty calm for my strong evidence. Well, so much for that theory. Mr. Wright, do you mind? What is it? You took the time to research our circus, didn't you? Well, yes, I did. Is there something making you think that I didn't? Did, then maybe you'll understand why I think you're off track. Why is that?
Motive. The witness feels incredible depth of gratitude toward Ringmaster. Anyone with any relation to circus is well aware of this. Thus, there is absolutely no way someone like this would kill Ringmaster.
It is true, the motive seems real sketch with the fact that he kind of adopted him.
Your Honor, I'd like you to hear Acro's story. Learn about his relationship with Ringmaster and life up until now.
What do we do? There's no doubting that Acro deeply respected the Ringmaster. Acro's motive, huh?
It seems that the case isn't over yet. Very well. However, I feel this is a good place to take a break. I will listen to the rest of Mr. Dingling's testimony after recess. The court will now take a 10-minute recess.
We got through all of that without losing any health. I'm really happy. That's some clutch business right there. All right. Awesome. Fantastic. We